taking care of my lawn. Just got started with that. My homie gave me a leaf blower and a weed whacker. What a king.
This is all part of the settling down that you probably had no idea had that part to it, huh?
And honestly, a lot of fun. I had a great time, throwing a podcast, wireless headphones, just having a blast out there, living life.
What's up, everyone? I'm Austin with Too Good Music, and I am so excited to be hanging with Abhi The Nomad today.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yes, exactly. We've got lots to dive into today, including the brand new album, Abhi versus the Universe. Before, we dive into that, I kind of want to take it all the way back to the beginning. You were a son of a teacher and a diplomat. So you spent childhood traveling around, but you ended up in California where you studied music production in college. What was it about music growing up that made you want to pursue a career in it?
I think I was always like leaning towards creative stuff, even at a young age. Had won a couple of art competitions and stuff, and I was really into drawing. Growing up in China, using school laptops, opening them, and then finding GarageBand, it's just another thing that as a bored kid and someone who my parents didn't really let me go to like parties or anything. All my friends lived far away. So I didn't really have like community that a lot of kids sort of have. So music and like art, it just in general, like are things that I was fascinated by because I was bored. Similar with tech. So it's a one constant thing in my life that doesn't involve, so to speak, like other nearby people is like these things like music, art, like tech and stuff like that. So I was just really fascinated by it. Everything else is changing, friend groups, locations, houses, languages. There's only a few constants in my life, and music was one of them.
Was it a hard learning curve to get into that kind of music production space because you hadn't had maybe like any sort of hands-on production experience?
It was actually the easiest and most fun I've had in my life. Like the genesis of YouTube, like after like, oh, Charlie bit my finger, the first ever YouTube video, within a couple years after that, people were on there teaching you how to use fucking Logic Pro X.
As a son of a teacher and diplomat, did your parents ever express any sort of concern pursuing a career in that creative space and within music?
They have been super supportive. I think as of in the past like 4 or 5 years, I've never seen them so supportive. At younger ages, they thought it was something I would do on the side. But then they saw how serious I was about it. I had some early on achievements before I was Abhi the Nomad in music that convinced them that I should study in it.
And then after like you got done with that music production degree and everything, your student visa ended and you found yourself living in France to, avoid going back to India. And during that time, you spent most of the year, putting together your full-length debut album, Marbled. But that was also a time that you described as an extremely isolating and lonely one. Your relationship with music and or maybe your dream of becoming an artist changed or evolved during that time that you might not have gotten if you would have stayed in America?
I'd like to make this distinction before I say anything else, but I think a lot of artists and fans of musicians alike seem to be, misunderstood on the concept that have to be at rock bottom to make great art. Every time I tell this story, people always say like, "Oh man, that's when like the greatest stuff comes out." I don't think that's true. It's a very inspiring time, but I don't think, any musician should use that as a crutch. That being said, it's one of those pivotal moments in life where you realize this is all you have. And I realized then like I don't have skills in anything that isn't like graphic design or like music. So this is it. And I already had somewhat of an entryway into music. It was peak SoundCloud era, and the independent artist was starting to froth and starting to build up hype. And that was a really inspiring time to see other artists, pull it off and do it. And I thought, if they can do it from their bedrooms, I can. Yeah, and I just decided to write about the real shit. It was a sad time.
I feel like as an artist, you could probably take that either way. It could be the most inspiring time, or it could be the most detrimental that you actually don't get any inspiration from. So
totally, and I've had both of those, and that's why I don't think that that misconception is, I don't know why it's so widely held.
And then so kind of going back to kind of like your childhood and stuff, as someone who spent their life in constant motion, this new album kind of reflects like a new world for you in which you're getting married, you're settling down, you've lived in Austin for 4 years or so now. As Abhi the Nomad, did it scare you to find yourself in a more settled space? And were you ever worried that inspiration, creativity might be stunted from this settling down?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was a little bit like right after graduating college and stuff, I was still pretty kind of on commitment, but honestly, it's like the best thing I've done for myself. And I've learned to like put my mental health first over what keeps me comfortable in the short period of time. My wife helps a lot with that. You know, my whole life has just been just this uprooting and replanting. This is the most sort of at peace I've felt.
Did you find yourself having different kind of writing styles or approaching music
Totally.
in this space now?
Totally, because now I'm talking about things that you or me might understand, and I have a, together. Whereas previously in my music, I felt really disconnected from the world, and now I feel a lot more connected to the world and feel like, hey, this is my home, and like, we shop at the grocery store down there on, off Riverside, and we have all these like things that I never had growing up,
Yeah.
and that's a cool feeling. I mean, the music's not as depressing anymore.
I also saw, kind of speaking of continuing with the album, I saw in an interview that this album really means a lot to you in the context of your other work because you felt for this one, it was really important to finally establish the sound for yourself and what people would know as Abhi the Nomad.
Yeah,
Was it important for you on this record and now in your career during this time to establish your sound?
I think there's a very clear path that I was heading towards with my initial first few like EPs and stuff. That when I was making that sort of music where it was just this bizarre blend of shit and not feeling inclined to sort of like please any sort of musical demographic or any music heads, I was so much more comfortable in making art, and I could do it so much easier. It just came so much more naturally. And I think with this record, like with all the funk and like all the groove and R&B stuff, that's really like the type of music that made me want to make music. And at some point we'll get there where I'll go off and do some absurd weird shit that my fans will be like, what the fuck is this? But but for now, I'm having fun finding ways to repurpose and, expand my comfort space. It feels right. I don't know how to explain it. I can tell you for every previous album I had, by the time it was released, I had regrets about songs that were on there. This one, none of them.
Well, it's probably because now that you feel settled in your home and your life and everything like that, it probably
Right? See,
kind of settle into a sound as well. And
I didn't even think about that. See,
yeah,
good point.
I think I read that it was Kanye's new workout plan that really kind of inspired you to become an artist. So, right?
Yes. So Kanye's new workout plan was the first like hip hop song that I heard, and I was like, okay, rap is cool.
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never heard anything like that in my life.
Kind of continuing the conversation, streaming and number wise, Sex and Drugs is your most popular song. And, there's a tweet one time that, someone was requesting, hey, can you make another song like Sex and Drugs? And, your response was that you wouldn't make another song like that because it wouldn't be exciting for you to do so. When you look at a song and the success of a song like that, is it hard for you to kind of remain creatively engaged rather than possibly looking to follow a formula for success?
It's a great question. I think the tough thing for people to swallow is that nobody wants to be told what to do. Maybe I'll make another song that's exactly like Sex and Drugs, but like it won't be because of your tweet. So it's crazy that, this is like, and it's not on some pedantic shit. I'm not gonna go stand at the, local McDonald's and tell them to fucking redo the McRib. you know I could give you an insight into like a musician's process. There is none. How I made Sex and Drugs, like I couldn't break it down for you. Like the way the neurons fire in my brain, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Kind of going back to the new album, it's a very collaborative mix with, about half the songs having feature credits on them. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting that, you use this album to kind of really create your defined sound, but you did it with so many other people, which is so cool to like be able to bring all those people into your universe and create the art that you want to. One
Yeah.
of your collaborators, Harrison Sands, you and him collaborate a lot, and he's been on the opener for you for a few tours. Like, how did that relationship start?
I love this story. Me and Harrison have like known each other for like 11 years. He's the only white family relative I have aside from my wife. He was my RA in college. He was always like the chill one, and I'd always like come back to the dorm room just fucking blasted and my eyes like redder than the devil's cock, and he would just look at me and just shake his head and walk the other way. And around like our junior year, it was like starting to get into music and like wanted to try recording stuff. And me and my friends were already doing it. And my friends, Shane, used to live together. Me and Harrison would come over and we would all record together and like try to make songs. And I say try because like, well, none of those are released. We've been making music for a long time. So at this point, really, it's just like clockwork. I would say 85% of songs that I have released. If you hear any like backing like harmonies, like any crazy ones, like it's him doing it. And all of his music that's released, most of it is mixed by me.
Cool. Just a few more, and these are gonna be a little more fun ones. I hope they've all been fun.
They've all been fun.
The past year and a half was obviously incredibly difficult for a multitude of reasons. And, I'm assuming putting together this album was probably a huge part of helping you get through this time. But I know that video games are a big part of your life as well. And but I read that Super Smash Bros. Is a favorite of yours, and it's also a favorite of mine. I think you can see the switch back there.
No way. Let's go.
If you could only play one character for the rest of your life, who would it be? And is there a character that you would love to see removed from being a playable character ever again?
I would be Samus forever. I think she holds across every generation. If I could remove anyone, like the most annoying character, it has to be between like Lucas and like Sephiroth, like the new one. He's like extremely overpowered and it's stupid.
If you could headline any music festival or music event, what would be the dream one to do so?
I'd love to do a Tiny Desk.
Ooh.
I think that would go over really well.
I'm surprised you haven't done the NPR Tiny Desk because they were one of your early supporters, right?
NPR, yeah, totally. They picked up and wrote about us like very early on.
What is the craziest, funniest, or sweetest, or I guess most memorable fan interaction you've ever had?
This one's funny. So I was at Hangout Festival. My fiance was with me, and I was like meeting and greeting people after I played. And this girl walks up and asks me to sign her tits, and I say, no, I can't. Like, I'm in a committed relationship. My fiance is right here. She's like, okay, but can you sign my ass? And then I go, no. She's like, she's right, she's here, and then she goes, hi, like I'm right here. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that. Pulls out her phone and makes me sign her phone with no case on the back with a permanent marker. And I'm like, it's gonna rub off, right? That was a terrible decision making on their part. This one time, this dude asked me to sign his limited edition Yeezys, which I was like, I feel like I'm not clouded enough.
That's almost
sorry.
With Kanye's workout plan being such an inspiration for you at the beginning, just
must be, yeah, it's destiny.
This is a question I ask in every single interview. If you could only listen to 5 artists for the rest of your life, who would they be?
Yeah, that is extremely difficult. I think I would have to say Beck for one. I love Beck. I would have to say Kanye because of his discography. Jay-Z, Arctic Monkeys, and then Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh, that was pretty quick for you.
I know what I like. I mean, you're asking for the rest of my life. Like, I don't know. All these artists have stood an incredible test of time. So there isn't anyone new that I would just throw in the fire immediately.
It's the rest of your life. You got to look for quality and quantity. So
exactly. Yeah.
All right. Final one. What's the rest of 2021 look like in early next year for you?
There's more coming out. There's more to the album. And we're working on a music video right now. I'm most excited to put together shows and start seeing people's faces. And I think the rest of this year is just me making sure that anyone who hasn't heard the album is just barraged with that shit on a daily basis to the point to where they're like, fuck, I'll click.
Yeah. and then they listen, they're hooked and like, fine, now I guess I have to go to the tour because I know.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I know every word. Yeah. See?
I know I've been to every show now.
Yeah, it's aside from that, I got a couple weddings to go to, a couple friends' weddings. I think I'm trying to secure up the courage to finally purchase the Dyson and the pet cleaning one, the animal, the version 3. It just came out and it looks fire. Taking care of my lawn, just got started with that. My homie gave me a leaf blower and a weed whacker. What a king.
This is all part of the settling down that you probably had no idea had that part to it, huh?
And honestly, a lot of fun.
You can get those lines nice and straight.
Ooh. Exactly.
Okay. A job well done when you can walk away looking at those straight lawn lines.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
All right, everyone. That was Abhi the Nomad. Thank you so much for hanging today, dude. You're super interesting.
Yes,
talented, and I feel very honored that I got the opportunity to hang with you today. The new album is Abhi versus the Universe, out now on all streaming platforms. So go check it out so that you can be ready for those shows coming up next year.
Yes, sir. The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk soon, and hopefully I'll see you next year at a show.
Yeah, man. Just hit me up whenever.
Definitely. Take it easy, man.
Peace, dog.